Hello, welcome to Next OppSocial. We are your hosts, Rachele, Wright, JuJuan, Buford, and Nina Payne. We believe entrepreneurship is empowerment, and we are committed to the development and progress of entrepreneurs, providing you with the information that you need to build thriving businesses. And today we're talking about Next OppSocial, what it is, who we are, and how you can better take advantage of our weekly interviews and episodes to help you improve your entrepreneurial journey. So I'm going to pass it
Oh,
to Nina.
well, thank you, Rachele. I'm so excited. I get to interview the interviewers today. I had the pleasure of being interviewed by these amazing people some months back and had a really awesome, pleasant experience and got involved a little bit more with Next OppSocial and was happy to be asked to be a part of this amazing team. Looking forward to all the amazing things that are going to happen and the entrepreneurs that we're going to touch and reach and teach and train and be a part of their journeys as well. But today we get to hear from the two founders themselves, Mr. Jess Buford and Rachele Wright. So first up is going to be Rachele. Rachele, tell us about your entrepreneurial background, a little bit about how you got to Next OppSocial.
Yeah, so I'm a musician by trade. So I've been playing piano for almost 30 years. I started competing when I was 6, and music became my life. And I went to school for music, for piano performance, music education. I was teacher for many years, but I also got a degree in music business, which is basically a really specific marketing degree, because that's what the music industry is figuring out how to make musicians famous, right? But after completing school, I was a music teacher full time for the most part. And I worked for music schools all over the country, depending on where I was living at the time. I am from here, but in Metro Detroit. But these music schools were all small businesses. And because of my music business degree, on top of teaching there, I started, and I was, good at growing my student base, retaining my student base. I started dabbling in helping these schools grow and expand. And that led to me working in more of the music industry for artist management companies, and then eventually arts and nonprofit organizations, and just establishing myself as a music business professional. But about 10 years ago, when I moved home here to Metro Detroit, opportunities presented themselves where I realized that my small business assistance didn't need to be just limited to music and arts, even though I'm still very involved with that. So now I help businesses of all kind, service-based, product-based, you name it. I've worked with just about every industry. I was a web designer for a long time, but after passing along my websites to clients, I realized they needed more help in getting people to visit those websites that I created, right? So that's what led me down the social media rabbit hole, learning how to develop social media strategies for my clients. And then from there, as social media has grown and the needs of marketing have grown, I added on more where, especially as a small business owner, you don't have all day to spend on social media. Social media is much bigger than it was even 10 years ago. You need more systems and marketing tools to help optimize your presence. So email marketing, automation tools, SEO. So I am a digital marketing specialist so I focus on strategy, implementation, and training for small businesses, organizations, and entrepreneurs. And most of my clients here are in Michigan, and the bulk being in Metro Detroit. But because I'm digital, I have clients all over the world. And it's been great. And I'm, as what I've watched over the past, especially few years, even pre-pandemic, right? Our digital climate and the digital needs of businesses changes very quickly, right? So I've always tried to stay committed to evolving and adjusting as what I offer as a specialist as well. And I don't even know how many years ago it was now, but I met JuJuan at a Detroit soup event, running another business that had nothing to do with marketing at the time. And we connected there, and we were able to grow this relationship and bounce ideas off each other and grow or help each other, right, in our own businesses as well. And then but joining together in the fact that we realize that a lot of this information, a lot of what we know, and a lot of that there's just not enough opportunities, or we need to push opportunities to the forefront for business owners and entrepreneurs to learn and apply those teachings immediately. And that's why I was very excited to join Next OppSocial and do this with JuJuan as well, because we can watch trainings, we can read books, we can do all these things all day, but we need actionable implementation, right? And so that's why I was super passionate about, continuing this, because that's going to continue to evolve and grow as well every week. So, this will never be old news.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you said a couple things that I wanted to go back to in your past, because I didn't know this. This is why we have to have these conversations. I get to know you even further.
Yeah.
So we have similar backgrounds. You're a
Yep.
musician. You've been playing the piano 30 years. You're in artist management. Tell me about that artist management time. Did you manage local artists, national artists? What was that about?
Yeah, I did a few different aspects. I worked for specifically an artist management company. They're not in business anymore. This was a long time ago, but yeah, a lot of like a lot of them, as you probably know, like they have one act, right? And then they try and grow a whole company and bring on other acts, right?
Eggs in one basket concept.
Yes. So they were mostly national acts, and country music, metal, rock, pop, it's the whole gambit. And specifically, a lot of what I did in that aspect was creating marketing content, media kits, helping develop some basic social web presence, and things of that nature, and really trying to find the best way to present these people as like the next whoever, right? And help get them booked in that capacity too. But because of marketing background, a lot of it is writing, right? So I would do a lot of like writing artist bios or writing press releases and things of that nature. But they were always smaller acts. Unfortunately, no one I've worked with has blown up. So it wasn't it was always really fun, and it was always really something I enjoyed, just especially when these artists were super passionate about what they did. But it wasn't always my cup of tea. It's a lot of hustle. It's a lot of work. And I'd always find myself falling back a little bit more to teaching. And so even though I would do those things, I'd always go back to teaching music a little bit more. That was kind of where my bread and butter was with that.
So it sounds like you weaved marketing through all your whole life. When did you actually start your business? Like when you put the paperwork down, when did that happen?
So Wright Outcomes is now, Wright Outcomes, that's what it is.
Right Outcomes.
Right
Outcomes. To say the business name because we don't know
Yeah.
that. So
Right Outcomes.
Okay.
I don't think about to talk about either, right? Right Outcomes is about 6 or 7 years old now. I was doing more freelance, just like, oh, let me just get my skills up a little bit. And I'm just someone who can do these things, and it'd be some word of mouth things. But when I realized that, no, I want to make this something, I want to turn this into something and build and grow this, it's been about 6 or 7 years.
And what do you think in this time that you built Next OppSocial as an entrepreneur, interviewing so many different people? Give me like the top 3 like lessons that you've applied to your business, or top 3 lessons you've heard that were like, the best ever.
Ooh, that's tough. Let's see.
Is that hard?
Well,
give me one.
I guess one big overarching one is that we've done this every week. And when we started it digitally, it was live. So every Wednesday at 10 a.m., we'd have a general idea of what we were going to kind of talk about with our interviews, or even each other when it was just JuJuan and I speaking. But I would never, I was always surprised every time we'd end the conversation or I'd end an interview on how much I learned from either just talking with each other or this person, of things that, regardless of where they were in their journey, whether they were, multimillionaire, huge, build a huge business, or they were even starting in their own, just, the passion, drive, and determination of all these people always stood with me, of like, an opportunity for me to reflect and use that same energy into when I'm feeling struggles, when I'm, you know, hitting a wall, when I'm wondering what I need to do next. I think that that's a huge lesson I've taken away, is that everyone experiences that. Everyone has these moments, no matter where they are in their entrepreneur journey. They don't end either, right? They don't just be like, oh, I've made it and now there are no more problems. But just knowing that you can persevere through all of those and come out on the other side. I think that's like a huge lesson that I always remind myself and take away. And, you know, a lot of these interviews just give me so much energy for the next week ahead.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Rachele. I'll come back to you in a minute.
Okay.
So, Mr. J.S. Buford, share with everyone like your brief background. You have an immense background, but just how you built up as an entrepreneur, and then how you decided to jump into Next OppSocial and why.
You know, I've thought long and hard about this question, even leading up to like 5 minutes ago, before we got started, because there was a confluence of events, you know.
I'm sure.
Yeah, there was a confluence of events. I have a couple things that I guess I remember. And I grew up south, I grew up west side Detroit, spent a lot of my formative years in Highland Park, right? And so needless to say, if you're familiar with the west side Detroit, Joy Road, and Chicago and Evergreen, you know, it's not exactly palatial palaces over there in well manicured neighborhoods.
No.
Right. So I remember as a youth, it didn't take me long to connect the dots, right? I'm looking at the environment that I'm in. I'm looking and seeing what's happening to the people there. And then, of course, every now and again, you travel somewhere with the family, north of 8 Mile and 12 Mile, and all of a sudden in the neighborhoods, an entire dynamic changes, right? And I remember as a youth, it didn't take me long to figure out that entrepreneurship, small business ownership has something to do with it. I don't know exactly how this works, but I know there's something to this. And then, you know, I started working early at the age of 13, 12. I was probably tall enough and voice had enough bass where people thought I was 17 and 18. So I started working a job, like almost like a grown adult at the age of 13. I mean, I was working 20, 30 hours a week and going to school.
Oh, wow.
So I fell in love with this concept called having money in my pocket. And so I'm working at the small bakery, and I'm seeing the impact there, right? I'm seeing the owners of this bakery hire their friends, and I'm seeing the owners of these bakeries hire their family members. And I'm making the connection between how this bakery is not only feeding their family, but also feeding their own neighbors and community members, right? Not just from the standpoint of food and beverages, but just providing opportunities. And once again, that left a lasting impression on me, right? So I knew entrepreneurship was going to be in my future. I just didn't know how it was going to manifest, but I put those two together real quick, fast, in a hurry. And then, you know, matriculating through University of Michigan, you're surrounded by wealth. You know, the median income at the time when I attended there was like $250K. I know it's got to be at least $100K more than back then. So you're surrounded with people who are coming from entrepreneurial backgrounds or who have parents that are managing large corporations. I remember, like it was yesterday, my freshman year, there was these kids down the hall from me in Markley on the Hill. And they were never in school. They were never studying. So we're there going to school to make good grades, and they're chillaxing all the time. But I noticed from 10 p.m. until 4 a.m., they were always up. And so one day, me, I said, you know what, what's going on here? And I walk in there and come to find out that group of kids down the hall, they were actually going to create a program a couple of years from when I met them that ended up syndicating Seinfeld all over the world. And that's one of those things that left a lasting impression. I was like, wait a minute. So I'm here, go to school, make good grades, but my peers are here doing something different. You know, they're networking, and, you know, they're starting up businesses and they're starting up endeavors and whatnot. And so I started looking at my environment totally different, right? I was a student activist on campus. You know, the seeds were sown. In seventh grade, when I read Malcolm X's autobiography, right? I got exposed to Lerone Bennett Jr. Before the Mayflower. Got exposed to some other titles as well. And if you read those books, they really force you to kind of analyze your self-concept and your role, right? And, you know, later on, Vincent Harding's There's a River. And so I begin to see myself not as JuJuan Buford, an individual operating in this context. I begin to see myself as participating in a river, right? A culture. And all those things came together to instill in me a desire to want to be a change agent in the community. And being that change agent and taking over buildings and raising hell and making a lot of people uncomfortable and bringing about substance change, I learned a couple things. That number one, you can be a quote unquote nobody, but you can make a huge impact, right? That you don't have to necessarily come from money. You don't have to come from the right family. You don't have to necessarily have the right connections. If you have mission, purpose, a will and a fire to execute and to pay a price, you can get a lot of things done, right? And I learned that entrepreneurship was probably the path I was going to take, right? So, you know, I finished college. I start working in the banking industry, which is kind of interesting because you couldn't have convinced me out of working. I knew I was going to be a teacher and I was going to start with a nonprofit, join an organization and become a community activist. I was going to continue the path I was already on. And something interesting happened. I actually applied for different organizational positions and community organizing positions with a couple organizations that shall remain nameless.
Good.
And they turned me down because they said I was too hood.
That was the word that they used?
Pretty much. Radical? One of them, no, they used the word hood.
They used hood on you?
They looked at me like I was hood. Back then I had the cornrows, right? I
must see pictures.
Yeah. I had the cornrows.
Hard to visualize it.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I was full scale. I had a kind of a slightly Tupac-like persona going on, right? Okay. So I had that whole thing going on.
You were applying and they were like, no.
They're like, no. And I'm looking at my resume. I'm like, you know what I've done? You know, you know what I'm already doing a community activism. I'm just applying here because I want a space to continue doing. Like, I don't need a help. I don't need a handout. I'll come in here and change this whole office around. But they flat out told me no. I was like, oh, okay. But
so then how you end up in banking?
Well, they didn't tell me no. They looked at my resume. They said, this guy's taking over buildings. He's articulate as all get out. He's a reader. He's a learner. He's willing to come in and work hard. They looked right past the cornrows. They looked right past my
really unusual. That's really unusual because banking is conservative. So
that's what I thought. But no, they welcomed me with open arms, and I did what I normally did. Right, I went out in the community, and my first 3 months at the bank, go through training matriculation process. They put me in a branch, and then 3 months from the time I start working in the branch. And to put this in context, I was working at Standard Federal Bank, which after multiple buyouts is Bank of America. Okay. And I was working at the branch. They moved me downtown to the branch off of West Grand Boulevard, New Center. So all you have there at the time is little old ladies depositing 2 cents in their account and leaving it just so they can cash their checks, right? And they gave me this goal that I had to raise $1 million in revenue from that branch.
So what was the job title? What was your title there?
So I was a licensed bank officer or a licensed bank employee, which means you had to go get your security insurance license and all that fun stuff.
Okay. So you're in the financial.
Yeah.
With loans and insurance and stuff.
Yeah. So basically when the goal came down, the branch manager and I looked at each other, we started circulating our resumes. It's like, there's no way in the world. Like we're going to get fired. We're not going to make this go off of, pension, people depositing their retirement checks and it just wasn't going to happen. Nevertheless, though, I went out in a 3-month period of time and I raised over $1 million in new revenues for the bank in a 3-month period of time. basically doing what I've always known to do, which is to go out into the community, meet people, chat with people, shake hands, introduce myself, lead with the mission. We want to help you out. I want to help you do A, B, C, and D, right? So a lot of things in the community, particularly African-American community, that you're not aware of, certain business principles. I took that to the community, and as a result, I was able to do something that was fairly significant. And then for my reward, they gave me a $50 Marshall Fields gift card.
Go get you something nice.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
man.
remember looking at it, and I remember the branch manager at the time, her name was Cinnamon. And she knew my character at that point. We got to know each other. When you're working on a salary and you're there at first in the morning, you're the last to leave, you get to know each other. Yeah. So all the fights and arguments and all the stuff professionals do, when everyone left, we'd get it in. Like, we'd go in on each other. Like, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, all that stuff. So she kind of knew what I was about. And soon as she saw the look on my face, and she knew what was in there. So as soon as she saw the look on my face, she looked at me and shook her head because she knew I was leaving that day. And that's exactly what I did. I typed up my resume that day during my break, and I gave it to her.
Your resignation.
Yeah, my resignation. Yeah. And, dumb decision. I would not encourage anyone to do what I did. I had no savings. I was a single parent. No network. Yeah, I attended University of Michigan, but I was from a pretty disenfranchised area. It's not like I had connections, right? And I quit. I was like, I'm out of here. And I figured, I could loan myself my own work ethic, my own talent. They messed up because I learned what money looked like. And I knew how to get it. And I was like, well, if I can do it for the branch, maybe I can do it for myself, right? And so I quit. Thankfully, because I saved her job as well. She did pay me another 2 weeks, despite the fact that I wasn't there. So that gave me a little bit of a cushion. And then I started out with Signature Financial, which is a broker dealer for John Hancock. So now I'm self-employed. You got to kill to eat. They sat me at a desk with a phone and a yellow pages, no training, no assistance, no nothing, and said, go to work.
Yeah, that's how they used to do it.
Yeah.
That was a hard-nosed way. You couldn't dare do that now.
Yeah. And I found out after the fact there was actually a pool in the office. I think the pool got as high as $10,000 to $15,000. They were all betting how soon I would quit, right? So, but once again, where that kind of activist background and the confluence of all my experiences came into play. And I think part of the reason why I didn't quit was obviously because I was a single parent, children got to eat. But the other reason why I didn't quit is I was like, I'm not going to give you satisfaction.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you satisfaction. So for 2 years, I kind of languished, but I learned some things in those 2 years, right? Of having to build my own practice and having to build my own business. And I think it finally dawned on them that he's not going anywhere, right? And so a new regime took over the agency. I think they saw my work ethic. They saw that I was able to kind of successfully begin to build a practice and gather momentum. And so I finally started receiving the training that everyone else around me had been receiving. And I began to excel, but once again, I'm sitting in the beast, as I call corporate America, right? And I'm seeing certain deals come through the pipeline, and those deals are sidestepping me. So I have the plaques. I'm winning the awards for working in these environments, but I'm not getting any of the spoils, right? And to be transparent with you, I got tired of showing up, and having to, even though I'm self-employed and I'm running my own practice, there's still contingencies, there's still compliance and all this other stuff. And I got tired of having to answer to individuals who couldn't do, I had more talent in my pinky finger than they had in their entire body. But I knew they were earning 2 and 3 times more than me because of a position or because the agency owner liked this person better, or it was a family member or a friend. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I work harder than you all. I know I'm smarter. I know I have as much capacity as you do. But as long as I'm in an environment where I'm truly not the captain of my own ship, I'm gonna have to keep dealing with this.
Is that when
Oh yeah, that's when I started plotting my estate. right?
The escape.
I started plotting my
Escape
escape.
from corporate America.
Just escape from corporate America. And, you know, I became an investment advisor because the other thing that kind of pushed me out is I wanted to use my capacity in that position, my access to information and wealth, once again, empower the community. But an interesting thing happens and this is just true in any entrepreneur endeavor, right? If your clients are earning $30,000 a year, you're solving $30,000 a year problems. So you're only going to earn $30,000 a year. If your clients are earning $100,000 a year, you're solving $100,000 a year problems. So guess how much you're going to earn? Well, as my income went up, I started getting further and further away from the community, right? Because once you start to getting six figures and above, it gets real slim in the African American community who you can work with. So that became a tension that was rubbing on me as well, right? I was spending most of my energy not in the community, but outside of it. And I was like, I got to find something that will allow me to stay in the community and be of service, but also be able to have the means to live the lifestyle I want to have. So that kind of pushed me there. And then 2008 was the coup de grace. Like everyone remembers 2008, right?
Bless Lord.
Yeah. And particularly here in Detroit. So I'm already dabbling in real estate. I'm already dabbling in some other business endeavors. I'm already starting up businesses on the side, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? 2008 rolls around, and I remember like it was yesterday. There was a gentleman, and I nicknamed him Santa Claus. I swear to God, short 5'2" guy, bald head, had the gray whiskers and everything. And dude was like crushing it for longer than I'd been alive. You know, I knew he was earning millions of dollars on a yearly basis. Ran agencies, kind of like a legend in the state of Michigan. And I remember like it was yesterday. The economy's in the toilet. I go from working 30, 40 hours a week, earning a grown adult income, to now my income is cut in half. My responsibilities are not cut in half. So of course, what I have to do, I have to turn up the volume. So I'm working Sunday through Sunday, 5 o'clock a.m. to 10 p.m. at night. When I have, you know, my children, you know, sometimes they're on the couch in my office at night, you know, doing their homework, coloring and all that fun stuff. You do what you got to do. Yeah. And I remember like it was yesterday, it was 5 a.m. The lights come on. So I'm already there. And I'm like, who the hell is in the office along with me? And it was him. And I'm like, dude, your pockets are deep. Why in the hell are you up in here? And he says, man, if you're accustomed to living off $1 million, but you're forced to live off 500K, it's the same thing as you're accustomed to living off 100 and you all of a sudden are cut down to 50K. I got to get in here too. And I was like, oh no. You know, I learned early on as well, you know, people have these aspirations where they want to have other people's accoutrements, but they oftentimes don't take the time to look behind the curtains and see the price.
True.
Right? So
Yeah.
He had the BMW, he had the houses, he had all the accoutrements of success. But I started looking at him and other people who had these accoutrements of success, and the majority of them had 3 and 4 heart attacks by the time they turned 60. Mm-hmm. Majority of them were grinding like nobody's business. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. I was like, no, this ain't for me, right? Mm-hmm. So I cut my teeth working with entrepreneurs, right? Because entrepreneurs have the money. They typically make blink decisions, meaning they kind of already know what the priorities are. It's either yes or no, right? And entrepreneurs tend to like to find individuals who know how to keep them from paying less taxes and keep their money away from the court system and everything else, right? So that's how I learned how to manage, you know, and structure businesses and money in such a way where you could create those type of advantages for yourself in the marketplace. And so for me, I just began to slowly but transition into that area and doing it freelance as opposed to underneath the umbrella of another company, right? I was introduced to a couple other endeavors, Legalshield being one of them. Their business model appealed to me because I said, okay, I can build my own franchise. I don't have clients and headache of the investment advising industry in my back pocket. And the service was a means for me to continue the mission of helping entrepreneurs, right? Providing additional services, providing additional value, additional means for other people to level up and set better appointments for themselves. So all these things just kind of came together. I had already set up my own agency, my own investment advising insurance agency. So I was basically just developing relationships and getting the pieces I need to really launch. And I eventually just cut the strings all together, right? And I said, I'm just going to go out here and I'm going to jump and grow wings on the way down. And that's kind of what I did. And really, everything I've done since then, it's all been correlative, right? The mission hasn't changed. I want to impact the community. I feel like entrepreneurship is the most effective way to do it. The one thing I learned as a community activist is beggars can't be choosers. And you realize that, right? That you can't come to the table and demand something from someone when you are not empowered, if you don't have leverage, right? And I said, I have to find a way to create leverage. I don't want to beg for the community center. I want to cut the check for the community center. If I don't like the liquor store, I don't want to complain about the liquor store. I want to buy the liquor store, take a vehicle and level it, right? If I want better educational opportunities, I'm not going to go beg city council and the mayor. I'm going to make it too expensive for you not to do my bidding, right? And I figured entrepreneurship was the way to get that done. And then, of course, freedom, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't the most popular person. Have never tried to be the most popular person in the room. It's never been in my DNA, right? I was never the person that was going to get along or go along to get along. It's just never been in my DNA. I'm a person that have always been a little bit impatient. And I've always kind of seen things first, like either opportunities, issues, problems. I've always just kind of played chess. And so I never really had the patience to wait for other people to catch up. Mm-hmm. And entrepreneurship rewards all those traits, right?
Well, we have that in common. I've never been a follower of anyone. So the popular, I was just having this conversation with someone about Birkin bags. You want me to spend how much on a purse? I don't even like carrying purses. They're a waste of time. I'm practical and a logical person. So I get that. So you took all of that and talked about how you moved into the Next OppSocial.
Well, once again, everything I've done, even my involvement in the real estate industry, other B2B consulting endeavors, helping other people launch businesses, and Next OppSocial was really an extension of that. I wanted to take the information, the wisdom I had acquired on my entrepreneurial journey and walking in and out of 15 to 20 households for almost 20 years. That's what I did, right? As an investment advisor and B2B consultant. So I learned things, I saw things. You manage people's money, you get up in a business. You see where the money's being spent, where it's not being spent, right? I start looking at that balance sheet, I'm like, ho, you got another lifestyle, so you learn. So, you learn some things about how people really get down and how businesses are built and relationships are managed and all that fun stuff. And for me, Next OppSocial, quite frankly, is just an extension of that, right? And Rachele and I met at Sue Dive. That was me prospecting. That's why I was there, doing what I always do, being nosy, looking to see who's doing what and what information I can glean or relations I can build to help the community, right? Yeah. And Rachele and I hit it right off. You said something earlier before we began. You wanted to get your nerd on. I've always been. I tell people I'm a muscular nerd. I'm that guy that reads books, but don't test me. Okay, so
and you're from Jordan Road, so
don't test me. Don't get the suit and the intellect food. Don't let it get you in trouble. So the bottom line is Rachele and I clicked on that level. We could sit and talk for hours about the nuances of client service and customer service, the nuances about marketing, the nuances of how to structure organization, how people build and get down, right? The nuts and bolts that people oftentimes ignore, we can do deep dives and get real nerdish with it, right? And that's what we were doing. Really, we were just sitting down doing that from time to time. Mm-hmm. And then the ideal popped up. I had already kind of had in mind that I wanted to kind of do workshops and seminars, and I was kind of already doing that periodically. Mm-hmm. But I'm willing to admit, I delegate my weaknesses. I'm a Neanderthal when it comes to technology. And I'm getting better, but you don't want me designing your website. You just don't want that. I'm not about that life, okay? You don't want to ask me any technical questions about any of that. And that's Rachele all day long, right? I gather between Rachele and I that I can be the more, I think Rachele's more pleasant than I am, but I tend to be a little bit more gregarious and more willing to engage. So we kind of married that together and started basically taking our conversations that we were having already and sharing it with the community, right? And that's how Next Opportunity Social was born. It was like, okay, we want to educate people. We want to create connections. We want to give this information to people who normally wouldn't have access to it, right? And we also want to do it in such a way where it's real, where it's genuine, right? You know, personally, I just had grown tired of paying $10 to $500 to $2,000 going to workshops and webinars. In the first 5 minutes, you find out that the person in front of the stage doing talks is a W-2 politicking like a 1099. Well, you can't lead me where you haven't gone, and you can't show me anything where you haven't grown. So we wanted to put real entrepreneurs in the room. You're going to take your veneer down and you're going to talk about your ugly duckling stage, because that's what we need. We want to know what it looked like before you reach the pinnacle of your success, right? And we've been very fortunate that other entrepreneurs have seen the value, have been willing to participate and be altruistic and be honest and be willing to give. We've been very fortunate that we've been able to motivate and inspire entrepreneurs who are just starting out, who may be fearful and have anxiety, and let them know that, look, no, it's okay. You know, if you're failing, that's great. Just fail faster. Let us help you out with that process, right? Let's get this, let's put some, some fluid on fire, right? And so that's how Next OppSocial was born. And, that's kind of how I kind of fell into this place. And to me, that's what's so fantastic about it. For me, Next OppSocial is for me, it's still activism. Right.
So Next OppSocial, I remember having conversations with you, and we would meet at Bamboo, where we ran into each other, so to speak, and kept these conversations going. And I remember you saying, well, I want to start these once a month, and you're trying to figure out how often it was going to be, but these meetings where you bring entrepreneurs together. So that's how Next OppSocial started, right?
Yes.
There were people in a room inviting people out pre-pandemic, of course. Everybody came to a room. You'd have a hot seat of entrepreneur and questions and context. And then tell me about the transition to digital. Was it because of the pandemic specifically, or was it always going to end up on digital, do you think?
It was two things. We were moving towards digital. We were having the conversation because we had people here in Michigan and also outside of Michigan who were hitting me up on LinkedIn like, I want to participate. What you all are doing looks hot. And for me, that was fascinating because I know we weren't doing an adequate job of really marketing and promoting. But to me, that was also called a clue, right? If we're not marketing and promoting, people outside of Michigan are starting to hear about us. We need to find a way to kind of fill in that gap, right? That space, that need, that hunger that's out there. So we're already kind of moving in that direction. And then the pandemic kind of forced the issue.
Well, the other part was that, when we have an in-person event, this is a specific day, this specific time, and you need to specifically show up physically. You need to get here. And with any event, you're going to have that problem. And we would have a lot of interest, and then a lot of people not be able to. Yeah, we had good turnouts, but we would have a lot of people who were bummed that they missed it, right? They missed this opportunity. In some capacities, like, it gave the entrepreneurs that were able to show up the ability to talk to lawyers for several hours for free, or for for $15 or something, right? So, that was a huge plus for them, but it was a disservice to the fact that we knew we needed to create something digital so that we weren't missing out on people who just didn't have the ability to get there.
How was that transition, like many other companies and entrepreneurs, small businesses and large, transitioning into a digital space? Like, how did that work out for you guys? And what was the process, Shelley?
It was very much overnight. Like, there was maybe like 1 month where we were looking at trying to schedule an event, and then we didn't schedule the event, obviously, because of pandemic. And then we were back to JuJuan and I just sitting here having these conversations, and we were like, all right, we're just going to go live with them. That's it. We're just going to do it. And we just picked a day and we picked a time, and it sort of just stuck, right? It was part of it was an accountability thing for each other, so that we, you know, the the world feels like it's ending. We need to remember that there will be life after this. Things are going to continue. Life has to keep going on, right? Business has to keep going on. And so sort of a bit of an accountability for us already. We were going to be checking in anyway. We might as well be pushing this out. And it just started to grow, right? And then we already had this model of, okay, we bring subject matter experts or things like that to these events. Well, we can do the same thing digitally, and actually it was 5,000 times easier because everybody's sitting at home. So it was like, oh, you're free at Wednesday at 10 a.m. Yeah. So you can come on here and do this. So, and it was really great that we were able to capture people that we would have otherwise probably not been able to capture the attention of for a much longer period of time because of, you know, everyone's at home.
So speaking of capturing people, let's talk about the interviews you've had. Like, so many entrepreneurs, small businesses, like you said, multimillionaires to the ones that are just starting out. What are some of the highlights? Like, give me your top two, Shelly, and maybe JuJuan, if you have a couple as well. Top two, because everybody's important. This is not a shout out or less than the other, but memorable ones. So many, I know. I've only been around for a short period of time.
I will say one that we were able to do. Well, we had to do one, even though we streamed it, we had to do one in person, and that was Tony Stovall. And that was extremely memorable in the fact that this was like this was like in the summer-ish or so. So like, I mean, and he's in downtown Detroit. People aren't down there, right? But he has to be open, right? And he was open and welcoming to us to interview him, but business is open, customers are coming in the door, right? And I think that was such a memorable, interesting event too for or interview, in the sense that this was it. This was the thick of it. We were doing this live. We were doing this as a business is trying to stay afloat. And he had such great wisdom to share, especially someone who has been doing this for many decades, you know, and has seen all kinds of ups and downs. And I think also just watching him as like, this is just another day, right? This is just another day in business, when so many people, even businesses around him, are feeling like the world is ending, you know. That was really inspiring. Let's see, another. My God, we've done like 50 of these. I'm trying. Oh, you know, we've had Tina Williams on several times, who owns QT Business Solutions. And I think what I also love about her interviews too, well, she's so good at doing these because she goes live all the time herself and does her own. But every time we've been able to have her, it's been as well like, she's going to show you how to make money. She's going to show you how to make money right now. And she's going to walk you through the steps of how to make money right now, how to get money right now, how to get grants right now. Right. And those were always really fun and exciting too. Cause it was like, but also we were able to dive into like a lot of the questions that I know people are asking themselves of like, oh, should I be applying for this? Do I deserve this? Or like, is this even worth my time? And just dispel all of that right away, which is just, I think that's what I love even about all these interviews is, you know, they're longer. We're able to get to the heart of, you know, those real feelings that so many of us ask ourselves, and just show other people we all think this, or no, so many of us think this way. And yes, you can have this too.
Yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback off Rachele, I mean, because when I'm doing the interview, I'm not thinking about myself.
Right.
I'm thinking every question, every comment that's made is designed to bring value to the audience, right? And so for me, the majority of the questions that are being asked are really designed to let the audience know, regardless of whether you're just ideating in your basement, getting ready to start up a graphic design business, or if you're, quite frankly, already very successful, knocking out 7, 8 figures, whatever the case may be, then the moment we're just all human beings. And everyone is capable. Everyone has the capacity to do this. Now, everyone might not be ready for entrepreneurship. That's a different discussion. But if you desire to step into the ring, you can do it, right?
Your
So,
two top best interviews?
Oh, wow. I mean,
I know.
because everyone is so valued, everyone's valuable for a different reason. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't
I probably say most memorable, because best is a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Was memorable, whether it was challenging or whether it was,
I would say
informative?
The interview with Michelle Madison was powerful, because it was like talking to an entrepreneur in real time and what they're going through now, but she also laid out 3 generations back about what entrepreneurship looked like 20 years ago, 60 years ago, 80 years ago, right? And so it was the learning was so much deeper, right? And I remember the 2 things I took from her is, number one, the game doesn't change in one respect, right? Entrepreneurship is not a game. It's not this nonsense you see on YouTube and on Instagram with people taking steak and egg pics. I'm doing no. Okay, it is blood sport. Yeah. And if you don't have the grit, if you don't have a strong why, you don't have a strong passion, a strong well or reservoir to pull from, most entrepreneurs don't do it for the money. We do it for the freedom.
Hallelujah.
And you have to have a well and a reservoir to pull from when you just don't feel like it, right? We as entrepreneurs, the reason why we're successful is we're willing to do what the unsuccessful are not willing to do, right? And listening to her really brought that home for me. Also, the sense of mission and purpose that she articulated, right? That, once again, it wasn't just about the money, but there's a river and there's a demonstrable impact, whether or not you're successful or not. Most entrepreneurs have this ideal that when I become an entrepreneur, I'm free for responsibility or accountability, when it's the exact opposite. No, you actually take on more bosses, right? Your employees are your boss, or the people who rely upon you financially for your success. They become your bosses. Your family, obviously, and responsibilities, that's your boss. Your vendors, if you don't eat, they're not eating. They're your boss. Your clients are your boss. The people who are watching you, and you may not be aware of it, but they're watching your movements and they're learning. They're being either inspired or someone's putting their light out, right? You have all this a different level of accountability, and listening to her was a reminder of that. Another one that we had actually recently, I was just looking at it. It's actually 2 that we had relatively recently that made an impact. But the one with Miss Tisha Hammond, for me, that was very memorable too, because we had kind of crossed paths multiple times, right? And the times in which we've crossed paths with each other, I've been able to see her in stages, right? So I remember where she was at before she even launched online. And I remember the conversations we were having, the exchanges we were having, and advice and guidance that we were kind of dispensing and what was being dispensed. And I remember watching her execute. Oftentimes I'll sit down in front of individuals and they'll chirp, but there's no execution.
Yeah.
And to see her execute at every level, for me, that was fascinating. And to see that she's still very much in the process, right? And to me, it was a reminder that there's no overnight success stories. They're just success stories that you hear about overnight, right? I remember when she was not very comfortable, didn't have a high opinion, high regard, no desire to be on social media. Now, it's fascinating to see her becoming slowly but surely an influencer, quote unquote, particularly in the Michigan market. And I would anticipate in 5 years, we'll see her getting some national attention and guidance. And to see that process to me was fascinating. So if I can think of ones that were memorable, and I thought had some really just good nuggets and good gems for people to pull from. All of them do, but for me, those are the two that are like freshest in my mind right now.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Teacher because I too, not struggled with, but just I think it's a generational thing about the internet and the things that we share now. You would never share your life like that. When I was growing up, that was stuff you just didn't do. And so as a generational person, it's like, okay, well, now I've got to change how I was taught and introduce myself on the internet. So it took me a minute. I struggled with the idea of sharing your business, whether it's my business, whether it was anything else. It was like you just didn't do that. From entertainment, I was sharing that in another interview. I don't share my artist stuff to nowhere. I could get blacklisted for sharing something that the artist was doing out into the community, and now they, But anyway, so yeah, I learned a lot from Tisha as well. She was a great interview. So tell me, you guys have been working at, sitting at coffee tables and hashing this thing out and developing this thing, and now it's digital. And how many shows are you in now?
55, 56?
55.
Or maybe more.
I think we're at 57 now.
57?
57, because it was 55.
This might be 58.
Yeah.
But that's an amazing accomplishment. Hats off to both you guys for your stick-to-itiveness, sticking to it and being consistent and putting it out and building the plane as it's going up, right? Because there are things that you guys are still working on and building and growing, and like all of us are as entrepreneurs, this particular baby of yours is in toddler stage, right? So it's got a future. So tell me about like what's going to happen now, what's going to happen next. Where do you see, Shelley, the next 5 years, where Next OppSocial is going to go?
Well, one thing JuJuan and I talked about right at that year mark, or right before the year mark, is even though we were so focused, especially for a while, on like making sure we were doing this every week, that we got a little bit, I don't want to say away, but we didn't root as much of the whole point of why we did this, which was establishing community, right? We wanted to now, okay, this is a process that we know we've got a handle on, the weekly process now. We get it. We can do this. We know we can get people on. Great, right? We solved that problem. But again, it's all rooted in developing this community of, locally, but also just as a place for people to learn and making sure we're having these discussions. We don't want to just have these discussions, put them out there, and not make sure that people are getting the value that we know they need from it and that they can get from it, right? So that was a big part of our shift moving forward, is like making sure everything we're doing is rooted in establishing a community. And that's, we shifted some of that with creating now the after show Facebook group as a place where we can just have more discussion, right? Yeah. Because these discussions need to breathe and live longer than the hour episode. For someone to truly take action on them, we also want to be a support system for them to do that, right? Not only the people who are having, we're so blessed that every person who we have on these episodes is ready to help their community too, right? So, yes, they've given us their time to talk about all these things, but we, not only them, but us as well, we want to help. Let's help you put this into action. Let's help you, grow from that. So that's a big part of it. I know. And then, just growing other opportunities of masterminds or events and things like that. We do, the digital stuff is amazing and great and convenient, but part of building a community is being a community also in person. And some people really, they need that. They learn better from that. They get more out of that too. So making sure we're finding that balance as we're moving forward between those two areas as well.
Do you think we'll continue to do digital and in-person events?
Yeah,
coming forward now that we're coming out of
digital's not going anywhere, and I don't think that you can well, you can't have not have a digital presence, but I think it's super impactful to have both be uh, just as valuable, because not everyone, again, just like the same problem we had a year ago or a year and a half ago, of not everyone can make it to the in-person stuff, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be given the opportunity to take away what you need from it.
That's good. That's good. So same, JuJuan, that's how, do you see anything else that you want to do maybe in the next 5 years to add on to that?
Well, I mean, I'm going to piggyback again on something Shirley said that caught my attention. Like, I need people not to underestimate the power of this digital space. You know, it kind of reminds me of my matriculation through the financial services industry, right? 20 years ago, if you wanted to be successful as an agent, as an advisor, you had to mentor to someone. You had to be taught, right? Because it wasn't like the wisdom and information was readily available in books. It was there, but not really. There certainly wasn't some online platform, right? So you had to go through the old boys network. You had to go through the gauntlet. You had to go through the system. And it almost worked like a check, almost like a bottleneck, right? Period, regardless of your background, didn't matter, right? Well, the governor's been blown off now. Today, if you want to acquire the wisdom necessary to become a successful investment advisor, the books are there, the online content is there. You can hear individual dispensing wisdom, whereas before you had to pay $5, $10, $20, $80, $100,000 to get room to hear it. Now you can go online and get it for free, right? That's not going anywhere. So the democratization of information and access, you better be a participant in it, right? And to be transparent with you, there's no excuse if you want to be an entrepreneur. The interview we did with the gentleman who owns, that's terrible. Gross. Yes. The fact that he said that he learned how to build that company via Google.
Right.
Now he's being a little bit facetious, but at the same time, there's a lot of truth in that, right? And so, no, this space, the goal is to become a recognizable brand in this space, right? And our brand, in this respect, should never change. And we're going to continue to it's going to continue to be content created by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. So you don't have to worry about us putting a W-2 politics as a 1099 out here. When you're getting the information, you're getting it from individuals who are walking, talking the talk, right? So that piece I think is important. And, you know, yeah, I see events taking place, workshops that are more designed to create connectivity. Also, you know, the value of what we're doing too is a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. And I think Rachele and I have I don't want to say we stand alone in that respect, but I think it would be an understatement to say we've been very altruistic, right? We're not here to blow ourselves up. We're here to give people their heartbeat props while they're in business and while they're still alive, right? And I want to be involved in endeavors and initiatives that continue to spotlight those people, right? Fortunately, but unfortunately, because of the internet and just the way human nature gets down, oftentimes you have people in enclaves and circles giving each other awards just for being friends of each other. No, we want to shine a spotlight on individuals who are actually doing the work, who are making a difference, who are making an impact, changing people's lives, right? And I'm always thinking about more creative ways to make that happen. At some point, what I would really like to see is a situation where I wouldn't call it a boot camp, but I think Rachele hit the nail on the head. Some kind of mastermind situation where we're not necessarily quote unquote mentoring people, but we're just providing basic things that I think entrepreneurs take for granted in terms of what's required to be successful in business. So we're putting on initiatives and putting on events that teach you the nuts and bolts of certain things, right? Help you get the fundamentals, you know, because right now what's going on is people, you know, I'll use basketball as a metaphor, right? Everybody wants to be able to drill behind their back and do all these tricks with the ball. They want to be flashy. They want to dunk from the free throw line. But you got a lot of people out here who don't know how to rebound. They don't know how to shoot. They don't know how to pass. And if you can't get those fundamentals down, I don't care how attractive or flashy you look, you're going to lose that game. Where you have a lot of people right now who are becoming entrepreneurs because it's sexy and they're not necessarily being taught fundamentals. And
it's trendy. It's trendy.
Yeah.
And for me, the impact is bad, right? I mean, we saw what happened during the pandemic. 41% of entrepreneurs, particularly not from American community, and in Detroit, I think it's probably even worse.
Yeah.
Closed their doors, and those doors aren't going to open up again. And the shame of it is those doors were closed for reasons that could have been avoided.
Yeah.
You know, if a lot of these business owners just understood the fundamentals of what they were doing and had a larger self-concept, those doors would still be open. And, you know, for me, one of the things that I would like, if the article is being read about what we're doing today and what we're doing tomorrow, I'd want to see somewhere in the article it being read, it being said that we literally helped more business owners be born, survive, scale, and grow, right? I would love nothing more than to look up and we had 3,000 fans, advocates who could write back as a result of being exposed to what they're doing here at Next OppSocial. My business went from here to here. And as a result, we're changing lives and impacting community. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think that's the work.
Awesome. Awesome. So moving on, we are running out of time here, but wanted to talk about the team. And we talked a little about you guys coming together in the coffee shops and moving to, you know, of like-mindedness with different skill sets, creating a team that works for what you guys did with Next OppSocial. But why'd you invite me to be a part?
Okay, Rachele, I see the look on your face.
Yeah, I was like, go ahead, JuJuan. Go ahead. Well, it was because it was,
So,
you know, we interviewed you almost a year ago, Nina, I think.
Yep.
Was it a year ago?
You were one of our first interviews. So I know it's like,
Wow.
yeah, it flies.
Gosh.
But then JuJuan kept coming back of like, hey, let's talk about Nina.
Well, I remember Nina and our first interaction like was yesterday. We kind of joke about it.
It does seem like it.
But I remember being in Bamboo and I remember seeing her walk by. We made eye contact and I said, "There's something fierce about this woman. I need to know who she is." Right. And and I remember, you know, it was, you know, it was like it wasn't standoffish. It wasn't overly friendly or warm either, but we were kind of feeling each other out. It was almost like it was, and I remember it, and I remember thinking to myself, okay, this person is very capable, purpose driven. It's just not a game, right? Because in that environment, you had a lot of people playing games. You know, you had a lot of people spending their parents' money, fronting like they're really building something. And I was like, I need to find some individuals who are actually about the work. And you know, anyone who's been around Nina long enough knows she can be political in the sense that she can be polite, but it ain't nothing superficial about her, right? So she can be very polite, but it ain't nothing superficial. So I love the fact she was very straightforward and honest, and that's what you look for. You know, I've reached a stage where you can teach people certain things. There are certain talents that can be inculcated. But there's certain things you can't teach. Grit. You know, you can't teach honesty or the being forthright. You can't teach commitment. It's just certain things you can't teach. And I saw in you, Nina, an alignment of values, right? And that's what caught my attention. And you know, when you've been in business long enough, the world gets real small. And you begin to realize that once you weed out lazy people, once you weed out people who don't have integrity, and I'm not saying integrity in a moral standpoint, I'm talking about this integrity of your movements. Like, what are you doing, right? Where are you going? Do you have goals? And once you weed out people who don't have a lot going on cerebral cortex and you're not willing to learn, it gets real small. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when I identified Nina a couple of years ago, I was like, I don't know where she's going to be 5 years from now, but I'm going to make sure that we're in each other's space, right? Because you don't run into people like that often. And of course, you know, I learned about your background. You have strengths that we don't have, right? Event planning, talent management, given the environments you've worked in, people's character. Like I remember some of the conversations we had, you were very accurate, you make accurate assessments of people's character. And these people shall remain nameless. But where I remember the conversations we had. And, I listened to her and I watched these people and I was like, oh, she was right on with that. Oh, okay. So those things are what, stuck. I couldn't get out my cross, so to speak. And when I would chat with Rachele about it, I was like, I think Nina could be a really good fit. I think she appreciates what we're doing. And, the bottom line is talent wins games, but teams win championships. And if we're gonna really make an impact, type of impact we're talking about making, we need an alignment of principles with powerful individuals to make this happen. And it'd be an understatement to say that you're a powerful, purpose-driven individual. And I was just gonna harass and harangue you until you eventually say yes. Or
it was an easy sell for me, really, because because I live in the land of entrepreneurship. I live in the land of mentees and people that call me. I had somebody call me yesterday about setting up an LLC, and it's not a formulated plan. I don't have a business that I'm in and helping people. It's just what I do, and I don't it's what I want to do. And I don't want to have a business. I just want to help. You know what I mean? I have my own business. I make money in multiple different ways. I don't need to do that. I just want to be help. And I want to help people who really just want to help, want to be helped, not just fluff and scuff. I don't do fluff very well. I think you're accurate. I can be really polite, but I'm also very direct, and I'm an acquired taste. And so when a lot of times it's my delivery. I have to work sometimes on softening my words, even though I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be myself in this space, to be able to share my experience, my relationships, whatever I can put on the table to help entrepreneurship, help Next OppSocial grow, help you guys in any way that I can. I feel that way, and it's genuine. And I think a lot of times people, because of maybe the harder exterior, people don't get a chance to get past it. And there's a reason for that. It's just who I am. But it just becomes that. So I've had a lot of people say that I can be a little unapproachable, and that that's okay. But once you do approach me, you get me sweet. I'm sweet. No, I'm not sweet. But I'm I'm nice. I can be polite, but I'm serious. When it comes to this, and when it comes to development, and it comes to my world, my business, I'm creating a legacy for my children. I want them to create legacies after legacies. Like, it is important to me to do it in a way that provides freedom. If it gets to a point where I feel like I'm back in corporate America, or if I feel like I'm behind bars again, then I'll move and do something else. Yeah. But right now, my event management and production and staffing company is still going well. I'm so passionate about it. It's been 20 years. You know what I mean? We are moving and shaking, which is fantastic. And I'm excited to do more. I'm excited to help more. So I'm glad to be a part of the team. It's a threesome.
All of you is welcome and encouraged. We are welcome and encouraged. And if anyone's watching and hasn't caught up on some of the recent episodes that we've had Nina on already, where we, in a very Next OppSocial fashion, we dived in messy, right? We didn't, okay, how's this, we'll just go, we'll try it out. But it's they've worked out so well. And you offer such even another perspective, and in terms of questions, in terms of how you can relate to our guests as well, that just has added tremendous value. That even JuJuan and I, it's not about JuJuan and I, right? That wasn't the whole point of it, right? And of Next OppSocial necessarily. So I'm excited and very encouraged, and love that you're here. So thank you.
Well, thank you. So tell our listeners, our audience, what's coming up next, what they can expect in the next few weeks, where to go, how to get in touch, all of that sort of stuff, Shelley.
We have some interviews we've already recorded, some that are we're scheduling out. We're getting with this momentum. Stay tuned for this, this interview. You're going to see some interviews coming up, but you'll see as well, as JuJuan calls it, our big, hairy, audacious goals. But we're going to see more activity in that after show group, more discussion from the three of us, more from our guests in there as well to help provide those actionable results. And truthfully, as we're growing and building, if there are interviews you've missed, again, we've done almost 60 of these, please go back and watch them, right? Please go back and dive into those entrepreneurs as well, because all of that information is not just timely for that time, right? Those interviews and the wisdom that they provide, you might need something you didn't need 20 weeks ago that now you need that value now. So at the very least, I encourage you to go back, watch one you haven't watched, or watch your one that you were a part of, and you're going to gain something else out of it that you haven't yet. So stay tuned. Visit us at NextOppSocial.com. If you are an entrepreneur and you're watching and you've got a story to tell, you want to be on this platform, we'd love to talk with you. So we'd love to hear from you as well. There's a form on NextOppSocial.com. You can reach out to us or email us at info@NextOppSocial.com. And we'll talk to you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.